How I built Home Depot's strongest shelf. That's what we're gonna talk about today, guys. Let's do it. Let me give you guys an idea of what's going on. So when I'm talking about it, you guys understand what I'm talking about. Here's what we're gonna build today. We're gonna build this big shelf right here, 12 feet by 2 feet wide. I put a couple supports at the bottom to keep it off the ground because I don't want any legs here because it's hard to clean underneath it. So I want to keep the space free underneath the shelf while maintaining a giant shelf. We're gonna make this so strong a person can even stand on it. Isaac, go ahead and stand on it. Go, 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 go. Come on, come on, come on. The floor is lava, the floor is lava. There you go. Let's talk about the tools you're gonna need to be able to build this shelf. So what I got here is I have a framing gun. We're obviously gonna use 3.5-inch nails. We're obviously gonna need some 2.5-inch nails to put the plywood onto the 2x4s. You might need an impact, that's up to you. I don't really know. You could really just do it with nails if you really want to, but I think screws are a little bit stronger. So if you want to build the whole thing with screws, that's perfectly fine. But if you want to do it with nails, that's also fine too. So then we're gonna also need a circular saw or some kind of a saw to cut the wood with. I like hearing protection. I have 2 different levels, just to level the shelf out with because I like it perfectly level. But these things, you can pretty much get away with having pretty much nothing in making this work. All you need is a saw, a hammer, and nails to really make this work. And obviously a tape measure and a framing square like this to mark straight lines. Doesn't hurt either. So let's get into this little project here. Here's how we laid out the shelf. What I did here is I went and I marked 16 inches on center on these 12 footers. Now you can obviously do an 8 footer, it doesn't really matter what size it is, just mark 16 on center. So I hooked it here. Obviously I know like 2 of the little studs are gonna go right there, and I marked 16 on center, and I put an X where we're gonna put the little stud. So I took my square and I marked it, nice straight line. That way when I put the little studs together, everything lines up perfectly at the end, and it's everything square. Not that it really matters that much because obviously nothing really relies on this, it's just a shelf. But if you want it to be perfect, mark it. The next thing we're gonna do is cut tiny pieces in between each of the 12 footers to make up the center support for the shelf. Now, that's gonna really determine on how wide you want the shelf to be. But don't forget, you gotta account for the framing lumber. So -3 inches if you're using 2x lumber. If you're using like odd size lumber, well then you gotta measure that and figure it out yourself. But if you're using 2x4s like we are, you have to -3 inches because of how wide the 2x4s are. All right, my shelf is gonna be 18 inches wide by 12 feet long. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut a bunch of, well, I'm gonna cut 10 15-inch pieces, and that's gonna give me the distance between to hold my shelf up. All right, we're just gonna cut 10 of these just like this. Okay. Now that everything's cut and graded properly, we're ready to start laying it out. So what I'm gonna do is start laying these out. I know we're gonna have one every 16 inches. Now I'm gonna take my outside of my shelf, right? Now that we have everything laid out and ready to go, the first thing we're gonna do is nail each one of these 2x4s together. You can see how the line and the X means that's exactly where it goes. So we line it up, we put 2 nails. Now that we got one side built, we can flip it up and just sink the nails that haven't gone all the way in. Now we're gonna flip it over, do the other side. It's the exact same thing all over again. And the important thing is just to make sure everything's nice and straight. That way it looks nice, because you really want to be proud of what you're doing. Now that we have our shelf, the frame of our shelf actually built, we're going to mount it to the wall. So that's what it looks like right now. And what we're trying to do is get something like that going. So what I did is I measured down 18 inches. So I know that's the top of our shelf is going to be right there. And I took my level and I leveled it all the way across, and I put one more screw, and then I came back and put a screw on each stud. Now what that does is it gives us a lot of strength. And the reason I'm using screws is because screws have less of a chance of pulling out of the wall, so there's a lot of weight, it's gonna hold more. Now, the shelf I'm standing on obviously can hold more than 150, all right.
200.
More than 200 pounds, actually both of us, so at least 400 pounds. Now it's time to do support for the shelf, and what I've come up with is I've cut the angle of the wall here on the end of this 2x4, and I've cut the angle that the shelf is kind of like resting. I cut that angle as well. So now I'm gonna install that, and the way I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put it in right here. It's gonna be like that, so it gives us more like a foot that's at the bottom, and that way, it's gonna hold a lot of weight. And there's a true test to know how much weight it can really hold. So we're gonna test that out in a minute. Let's get these supports in. So now that I've explained the supports, here's what they look like when they've been installed. And that gives us enough strength to hold probably close to 1,000 pounds. I gotta say, I think we could get 4 or 5 people up there. I think so. But next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna cut the plywood. Now, we're just about to cut this 3/4 plywood. Obviously, you could use whatever size you want. You could use 1/2 inch, but that's a little flimsy for me. I like 3/4 because I like something that's really solid. Now, if you're at Home Depot and you're buying it, it'll be marked under 2332. Either it'll be like a CDX, or you could even use like an AC plywood, which is a little grade nicer, that looks a little nicer finished, doesn't have the knots. Really doesn't matter. We're using CDX. Let's cut this plywood, and then I'll show you guys how we secure it to the actual shelf. Okay, let's put the plywood on the shelf. Okay, that's one piece. Nice. Okay, let's do the second one. What's the nice side? Okay, not that side, not the side that I cut. Got it. Here we go. Looks beautiful. Getting caught. Cut. Okay, you'll put a nail typically every 6 to 8 inches. Don't get too crazy. It's just a shelf. Looks pretty good. 2 guys on a tiny shelf. Now, if that's not proof that this shelf is the strongest shelf, it's the strongest shelf there is. I mean, really, Home Depot shelf, you did it well. All right, let's get off the shelf. We gotta get back to work. Hey, Isaac, one more time. Do it for the camera. Get back up on there. Careful, the ladder's gonna fall out. There you go. You could hide up there. That works. There you go. All right, and that's how we built the shelf. That's how you do it. Let's go talk to the customer, make sure they're happy, and then we'll know what to do. Tell me you love it, or I'm gonna shoot myself. What do you think? One satisfied customer. And that's a wrap, guys. Thank you for watching along. Honestly, if you guys have a hard time cutting plywood at home and you don't really want to use a circular saw, just have everything cut at Home Depot. They'll do it for you. They'll cut 2x4s, they'll cut plywood. The people there are very nice. All right, guys, I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, for those who stuck around, we're doing something a little different now. We finished up the shelves, but then we thought to ourselves, well, we have these old paver cutoffs, right? Because we just did a deck with the iPay pavers. We put a face on the shelf all the way down. Look how nice that looks. Oh yeah, 2-foot pieces, because that's what the pavers are. So we're gonna take apart the rest of these, and then we're gonna do the top one, well, the middle one as well. And then, for those who stuck around, you get to see all this. All right, now we're at the end of this video. Thanks guys for watching. We just wrapped the bottom of this, and I think it came out all right. The top we did pretty well too. I mean, considering what we found in the dumpster, this actually looks pretty good. We're just missing a spot over there, but there's nothing we can do about that. We even put the backboard so the stuff doesn't fall off the workbench while you're working. But that's the end of this video, guys. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for sticking around, and hope you guys enjoyed it. See you guys soon.